What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, putting America first, second, and third. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And welcome to our show today. It is Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. It's also Groundhog Day. We'll be talking about that a little bit. We have a lot to get through today. There's been a lot of news, a lot of stuff going on there. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials and keeping us out of trouble. And we're going to do news until we run out of news. And then we're going to open up the phone lines for your comments, questions, and observations. Anyway, as I mentioned before, this is Groundhog Day. And this was a real big deal holiday for my Aunt Mary when I was a kid, and she'd make a cake and everything. And anyway, Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow, and they are now predicting 6 more weeks of winter. Phil gets it about half the time, and the weather guesses are saying that we're going to have an early spring, which I think probably most of us would prefer to have that anyway after what we've been through. Anyway, we've got this heavy snowstorm. It went through here a couple of days ago. We got snow. It's melting. But it's apparently so heavy in places like New York City, it is preventing ambulances from getting through. It's blocking traffic. The snow is still coming down there, and it's expected to affect much of the east out there. And apparently they've got winter storm warnings running all the way from North Carolina to New York. As much as 2 feet of snow, dangerous travel conditions expected some places into this evening. So if you have to go on out, please exercise the appropriate caution there. All righty, story coming on out of expressandstar.com. Last month was the coldest January in Great Britain in the last 10 years. They're expecting more wintry weather to cause disruption. They're expecting a cold snap here in Indiana next week. Gosh darn, that human-caused global warming. What can I tell you? It's just a curse on us all. All righty, now over on Donald Trump's impeachment fort, if you will, his original legal team quit. And the story is that Trump wanted them to focus on the election fraud, and they wanted to focus basically on refuting the claim that Trump in any way incited the protests at the Capitol back on January 16th. But he's got a new set of lawyers out there, and they're scrambling to basically put their case together as we're coming up on the start of the impeachment trial. Now, Wayne Dupree is out there, and he's on Russia Today, basically saying that the Democrats don't just despise Trump, they fear him and what he might do to them in the 2024 election. And it doesn't necessarily mean that he is going to run as a candidate, but he still has a huge amount of influence and money, and he's going to be out for blood as far as the Democrats are concerned. Now, at this point, the Senate does not have the votes to convict Trump at his second impeachment trial. And the Democrats have overreached again, waste a lot of time and money when we, the people, wish the Congress were perhaps taking care of some other business like the pandemic, the crumbling infrastructure, and all that other stuff here. So, apparently, according to Wayne, they're very concerned that Trump is going to stage some kind of a comeback in 2024 to try and pull them down from power, and he very well might do that. Now, a little bit of good news. Donald Trump has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize because of the Israel-United Arab Emirates peace deal, which was the first domino in a whole chain of these peace agreements. So he's been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Apparently, so has Black Lives Matter, which I cannot understand given that they were hardly peaceful this last year. Anyway, down in Arizona, according to Blabberbuzz, the initial Arizona audit has confirmed fraud, okay? And you're not going to see this on ABC, NBC, CBS, or any of the rest of the legacy media there. This is something they don't want you to know. Arizona is now ordering a full machine audit of every single machine in the state. And, you know, they have to go through the process. The state government is saying, yeah, fraud has been demonstrated. This could be the beginning of a trend of exposing all these states where fraud took place. Article coming on out of AmericanThinker.com, the political storm ahead, and unfortunately it is in agreement with some of my observations. We're entering a very dark time in the nation's history. In fact, it may be darker than anything our nation has seen in its entire existence here. They're talking about the attack on the First Amendment, an end to a free exchange of ideas, thought-provoking discussion, tolerating a simple different point of view, and this diversity of opinion is on the verge of becoming extinct. History is being rewritten. Statues of Lincoln are being brought down along with others, and one has to wonder how long it will be until we were no longer allowed to have cities, counties, colleges, or streets named Washington, Jefferson, Franklin, Jackson, or Roosevelt. And the darkness does seem to be descending, and we're heading into an Orwellian dystopia right now, very rapidly. It's almost scary how fast it's happening. But I think they're trying to do pedal to the metal before the American people really wake up to what is going on. Another article, this one coming out of UNS.com, talking about how despite his call for unity, Biden's administration seems to be leading the assault on white Americans. And Trump voters fear that they are being criminalized for not voting for Biden. And apparently Biden is calling for a constant, unrelenting immigration. And Biden has said a non-white majority will be a source of our strength, meaning the Democrats. So Biden also said English jurisprudential culture, a white man's culture, has got to change. So pretty strong words for an old white guy here. And it's getting even worse than that. Representative Jackie Speer, Democrat from California, said that since Republicans sometimes use the term radical left to refer to Democrats, Democrats should label the GOP with an even more extreme moniker, and he is suggesting labeling all Republicans as terrorists. Now, that is really, really out there. If you're a Republican, if you voted Republican, he wants to say you're a terrorist automatically. Okay, and little message there to the control room here. Now, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez went on out and compared Ted Cruz and Holly to her one time when she was the victim of a sexual assault. She's accusing them of using the tactics of abusers who want to do it again. And apparently this triggered a tremendous backlash. And now you are getting, a lot of Republicans saying that Alexandria should apologize, and she should here. Okay, over at the White House, do you remember the very, very first White House press conference? The press secretary, Jen Psaki, pledged to bring truth and transparency back to the briefing room, and said she had a deep respect for the role of a free and independent press. And here we are 2 weeks later, and reporters are raising concerns about press office staffers trying to get them to give their questions in advance. If they plan to bring them up at the briefing, the press office wants an early copy. And of course, this prevents follow-up questionings. And it may be as simple as having to prep Joe Biden to appear to be able to answer the question spontaneously when we all know that he can't. Meanwhile, over at the New York Slimes, they are calling for Joe Biden to appoint a reality czar to fight misinformation. And again, a lot of people are comparing this idea to the Ministry of Truth in Orwell's 1984. And the job of this reality czar would be to head up a centralized task force that would coordinate single strategic response to things like conspiracy theories regarding election fraud or the COVID vaccine. So free speech is under attack. The First Amendment is under attack. And I'm thinking about all those American soldiers over the last 200 plus years who died protecting and defending our Constitution, which includes the Bill of Rights, from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And it turns out the real enemy is definitely domestic. The Democrats are definitely trying to turn this country into something else, a new version of the Soviet Union, forgetting what happened at the old Soviet Union. Apparently, this is a case of hoisting with your own petard. There's a YouTube video where this socialist group that has been cheering censorship has now been censored. And this is a story coming from Glenn Greenwald. And I just think that's delicious irony where they're out there saying, yes, censor, censor. No, not us here. And as you know, Parler, which is still not up and running, I checked just a little while ago, Parler was taken down on the theory that it was used by people who commit violence. Well, if you look at this article coming out of Investment Watch blog, the same applies to Twitter and Facebook. They are both used by people who are planning to commit violence, and therefore they should be shut down right alongside Parler. Of course, this had nothing to do with violence. It had everything to do with getting rid of uncontrolled opposition where people could go and share their ideas without the benefit of government-induced censorship here. And they're admitting the White House is pressuring the social media companies to censor speech. This is coming from the press secretary, Jan Psaki, and basically saying, you know, we need to reduce hate speech. Now, there's something that's very important for you to remember, okay? One man's hate speech is another man's opinion. There are no laws prohibiting hate speech. There isn't even a clear definition of what that is, and courts have ruled repeatedly that hate speech is free speech protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution. Now, I don't like hate speech, but let's get it out there and argue the merits of the case. If somebody comes on out and says, you know, all of this ethnic minority are tap dancing barefoot on shag carpeting, you know, I have an equal right to come back and say, well, I know members of that ethnic minority, and they're actually clogging on hardwood floors. That's how dialogue happens, okay? So let's talk now about COVID. It is still out there. Apparently over in Great Britain, all 11 cases of the Kent coronavirus variant with an extra mutation, which they think can get past vaccines, were found in Bristol, and mass testing is being rushed to the city to try and stop it from spreading even further. So this new mutant COVID has spread to Bristol and Liverpool. And apparently Matt Hancock is saying more door-to-door tests will be scrambled to homes across the country over fears that the South African strain, as number 10 tells people, they must stay at home. So it's still going on there. All righty, now there's a story out of Madness Hub. A single shot of Pfizer's COVID vaccine might not be enough to protect people over the age of 80 from the South African variant of COVID, according to a study done by Cambridge University. Now, we already know that the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine don't actually protect you from COVID at all. They have admitted after you've had your shots, you can still get COVID, you can still pass it on. It's all about the Benjamins here. Over at Global Research, they have another article asking if the CDC deliberately misled the public on allergic reactions to the Moderna vaccine. And apparently on January 13th, California health officials issued a hold on 330,000 doses of the Moderna vaccine after fewer than 10 people in San Diego's Petco Park Stadium suffered allergic reactions to the vaccine. One day later, on January 22nd, the CDC issued a morbidity mortality weekly early release, and apparently they used data reported to the vaccine adverse event recording system between December 21st and January 10th to investigate cases of anaphylaxis. And apparently the CDC's choice to use the vaccine adverse event reporting system data to calculate the anaphylaxis is idiosyncratic and troubling. You need to remember that system went down for a good part of last week. So the statistics are right now, there have been 329 deaths following the COVID vaccine and 9,516 other injuries, in quote marks here. And these numbers reflect the latest data from the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System website. Of the 329 reported deaths, 285 were from the U.S., 44 were from other countries. The average age of those who died was 76.5 years old. Okay, now there's another article. This one is coming out of Yahoo. And apparently they're talking about this disagreement between the European Union and Britain, where apparently the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine has fueled debate over its effectiveness among the elderly. And Germany has already said it will not advise over 65s to get it. Italy's Medicines Agency on Saturday approved the vaccine for all adults, but recommended alternatives for people aged over 55. So, and word is spreading around here that the elderly should avoid the vaccine shots as well. Story coming on out again from Yahoo, only 38% of nursing home workers have accepted the COVID-19 vaccines, according to the latest data. And interestingly enough, of course, these nursing home workers were considered the top priority for the vaccination, but most of them are refusing it. And, you know, there have been anecdotal stories about them turning down the vaccines, which were dismissed as conspiracy theories. But these are the first national level figures confirming that, yes, in fact, people with some medical background are hesitant to have this vaccine. Okay, the Lancet, which is a highly respected medical journal, has published preliminary phase 3 trial results of Russia's Sputnik V vaccine, showing it is 91% effective. And apparently they had 19,866 volunteers. 4,900 were in the placebo group, showed that Sputnik V had an overall efficiency of 91.6%, which certainly is better than what we're seeing with the American-produced vaccines. Now, Dr. Anthony Fauci has warned that there is still a very high risk of getting infected with a new variant of COVID-19, and he's basically saying get vaccinated as quickly as you can to stop the mutations. Meanwhile, hospitalizations for COVID have dropped by more than 10% in 38 states. Now, looking at those numbers, it would almost seem like maybe we're kind of over this, but they're already out there, pushing the propaganda for COVID-2, COVID-3, COVID-4, the golden cut, and so forth and so on. All right, the Transportation Safety Administration will fine passengers who refuse to wear masks on planes, trains, and buses, bar them from entry, and non-compliant travelers will be reported to federal officials starting today. You need to be aware of that. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back after these few words. Welcome back to our show here, and again, a quick reminder. Actually, it's a beg. I'd get on my knees, but it would take a chain hoist for me to get back up again. Republic Broadcasting Network is working to keep the American public fully informed so they can make good choices in the best Thomas Jefferson model. And in order to keep doing that, we do need your support. Our advertisers are being harassed, and you know, it's a war out there. You can see that there's a war out there, and we really do need your help. And we're very grateful for the help that you have sent Republic Broadcasting Network. I wish I could say it was enough, but then I would be lying and my nose would grow. So once again, the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. And all this contact information, of course, is at the top of republicbroadcasting.org. So when one of you wins the Powerball, please remember Republic Broadcasting. All right, we're talking about COVID-19. We're talking about the downside of the lockdowns. And there's an interesting article over at the Daily Mail talking about how the fact that during the lockdown, substance abuse, especially alcohol, has just gone through the roof. And apparently alcohol-related deaths are spiking. We may be losing more people to the alcohol than to COVID-19, but the fatalities are at the highest level since records began in 2001. Okay, over in Poland, numerous small businesses have reopened in a mass civil disobedience campaign. And apparently, anti-lockdown activists launched a map showing the growing number of businesses in Poland that are reopening in violation of the government's dictates. And while a number of struggling businesses are in open defiance of the rules, and some have successfully challenged them in court, others are seeking creative workarounds, including an ice rink that declared itself a flower shop and nightclubs posing as political party headquarters. I love that one. So yeah, people are being very clever out there. Over in Germany, a bunch of doctors signed an open letter to Chancellor Merkel saying it's time to put an end to the COVID fear machine. They understand that COVID is being sold as a big booga booga to keep us all in our place, as it were. And they're basically saying that for all the propaganda that's going on, they're saying, no, we're not seeing it at the level of care. We're not seeing the numbers that we're being told should be there. I don't know that Merkel is going to be listening, according to the story at Anti-Empire. Apparently, the first of the quarantine objector facilities in Germany is now open for business. And so they really are going to lock people up for violating the quarantine over in Germany. And I would think the German people would be very sensitive to camps of any kind over there. Over in Denmark, there's been a major lawsuit filed against the Prime Minister, first of all, for the COVID-19 restrictions, and second, for killing 17 million minks. And that is a big chunk of money. If any of you have ever priced a mink coat for your significant other, and yes, Valentine's Day is coming up, but apparently, according to the lawsuit, authorities did not recommend a major shutdown, as Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen claimed. It was herself and Barbara Bertelsen, the Prime Minister's head of department, that sent the alarm emails out there. And apparently the other problem was the 17 million minks, which is a major part of their economy over there. So we're going to see what's happening with that. Over in Great Britain, I mean, this is just so over the top, and it's just getting so silly. Over in Great Britain, the COVID cops actually arrested a man for handing out free soup in a park, claiming he was violating the COVID-19 restrictions. Now, Nick Smith had been giving out free soup to people in his village for 17 weeks before the Sussex police intervened, claiming he violated the COVID rules by encouraging people to gather. However, Smith cited exemptions under the rules for volunteering, which allow for up to 15 people to gather indoors or outdoors. And this is a guy who's trying to help. People are going hungry, and especially because of the lockdown, he tried to do something about it. They come down on him for it. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. All righty, another story, this one from Zero Hedge. Apparently, the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine, we gotta take a break. All right, we'll do this story after these few words. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about COVID-19, and we're talking about this article that came out of Zero Hedge about the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine. Now, they've had their share of setbacks and delays. The German government is looking at age restrictions. Other EU nations are turning to offerings from Russia and China because of production delays. And according to Reuters, approximately 1,500 volunteers in a late-stage clinical trial were kept in the dark after they were given about a half dose due to a measuring mistake by the Oxford researchers. Instead of fessing up, the chief researcher, Andrew Pollard, played it off in a June 8th letter to trial subjects as an opportunity for Oxford researchers to learn how well the vaccine works at different doses. But basically, they just gave the people the wrong dosage there. Whoopsie. We've been reporting on these mass protests against the lockdowns all across Europe, Italy, Denmark, now Poland here. There's been a total corporate media blackout on this in the United States of America. I guess they don't want us slaves to get any uppity ideas out there. But it is very noticeable that they are not covering these protests, and they're getting very intense. We're talking like tear gas and rubber bullets and water cannons and mass arrests. It's just amazing. Meanwhile, up in Chicago, Mayor Lori Lightfoot has reversed her course on her plans to lock Chicago public school teachers out of remote learning. And the decision came after teachers threatened to strike against the mayor and school district, who both insist teachers return to classroom learning. And this is getting kind of weird. Out in Los Angeles, they're going to open up the restaurants for outdoor dining. I think we mentioned this yesterday. But they're not allowed to turn on their TVs. And, of course, we've got Super Bowl coming on up. And to show you just how nitpicky they're getting out there, the Centers for Disease Control is urging people who are having Super Bowl parties to tell the people at the parties, don't cheer, don't sing, or don't shout during the game, which tells us that CDC does not understand the ritual of Super Bowl Sundays here. And apparently cities are trying to put tight restrictions on fans planning to watch the game. Now, I'm not a big football person. The only time I watch the Super Bowl is to see the commercials, because the best commercials of the year are aired on the Super Bowl. And that was kind of a little side thing that those of us in the ad industry were kind of aiming at here. All righty, now everyone is getting tired of COVID, and we're not really being impressed with COVID-2 and COVID-3 and COVID-4, the golden cut. So they're already warming up. They've got in the bullpen a replacement booga booga to keep the fear going. And the CDC is now out there warning about a new drug-resistant fungus as the next pandemic. So get ready for that one. So CDC is warning about this emerging type of fungus that poses a serious global health threat to humanity, and for which I'm sure the pharmaceutical companies already have something highly profitable to sell. Now, the fungus is called Candida auris, which has now been registered among 1,625 American patients as of the 19th of this month. It's a yeast-like fungus that is difficult to identify using common laboratory methods without resorting to special tests. So that's the next one they've got here to keep the profits for the medical industrial complex going here. Okay, turning to the international news here, the Biden administration has canceled the planned removal of troops from Afghanistan. They're canceling the pullback. And a NATO official said there will be no full withdrawal by April end. And this is another way that Biden is, flipping the bird at Donald Trump here. And he's cranking the war machine up here. Now, the Taliban is warning that if the U.S. troops stay, they will be subject to attack. The fight is going to continue if the troops stay in Afghanistan. Now, since the whole deal for the Taliban was getting rid of the foreign occupation, they're saying this should have been an obvious reaction. It's all about that oil pipeline right of way and all about the poppies. Got to keep the poppies flowing, for both the legal and illegal drug trade. We're doing great business here. Over in Myanmar, things are really heating up. Myanmar's top general, who seized control of the government, says it was inevitable the military would step in after the obviously fraudulent elections that returned Aung San Suu Kyi to power. I have to say, given recent events in this country, I'm not entirely objecting to his thinking here. But obviously, a military coup in Myanmar is a blow against the Biden regime. It's been a shock to the international society. Official statements by Western governments and the UN condemn the attitude of the Burmese military in overthrowing Aung San Suu Kyi. And basically, they're calling it a threat to the democratic institutions. Okay, Biden is saying exactly the same thing. He's threatening Myanmar with sanctions over the army coup, vows to stand up for democracy under attack. I wish he'd stood up for democracy in November, don't you? I mean, that would have been really nice if Biden had gone along with the will of the American voters. So he gets the prize for the Olympic gold medal for hypocrisy goes to his fraudulency, Joe Biden here. Okay. Apparently, this Myanmar situation is causing a lot of confusion. Biden administration officials are trying to decide whether to call it a coup over fears they will anger China and be forced to withdraw foreign aid. So they're going back and forth on that one. It's a sticky situation, but hey, you wanted the job and you've got it now. Okay, there's an article, and it's coming from the Saker. And it says, with Biden in the White House, the Kremlin now needs to change gear. And he says, when he speaks of Biden, he doesn't mean his fraudulency. He's talking about the collective Biden and all of his advisors and so forth in the staff. That's what he's referring to as Biden. And basically saying that the war machine is cranking up and the Pentagon has to be paying attention to that. Because has always been the case throughout history. The U.S. wants a war, but wants the other side to move first. That was the reason for Franklin Roosevelt's hoax leading to the attack on Pearl Harbor. And, warning that our elite classes are just, they're saying, well, we got too many people anyway. Let's have a nice little war here. All right. Apparently, Navalny, not sure how to pronounce that, has been sentenced to 3.5 years in a labor camp for parole violation, and the U.S. is criticizing that. The Kremlin is telling the United States to back off because it's an internal affair, and the U.S. really doesn't have any authority to speak over there. And, again, here in this country, we see people sent to prison for parole violations all the time. It's not that big a deal here. Now, the other thing that is coming, that you've probably seen going around the internet, this photo of an absolutely palatial seaside estate that is being captioned as Vladimir Putin's billion-dollar palace. Implying that he has been plundering his government and the people to build himself this wonderful palace by the sea. Well, it turns out Putin's got nothing to do with that building. It's actually owned by a Russian industrialist who basically did very well in the new Russian republics and built the house for himself. And he's gone public saying, no, this is not Putin's, it's mine. And it's just another dumb piece of propaganda here. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is reviewing sanctions against Russia. Basically, it's a difficult situation. I mean, the U.S. and Russia recently agreed to extend the New START treaty, the nuclear arms treaty, but at the same time, they're causing waves over this Navalny situation. So I would think that the START treaty would be much more important to American interests than one opposition figure in Russia. Meanwhile, of course, the aggressive U.S. policy in the Black Sea continues. The presence of destroyers by American armed forces along the Russian coast is notorious and causing discomfort among the Russians because of the closeness to their national territory. Apparently, they made their angst known because just as the show started, we got a report on how Russian bombers buzzed the USS Donald Cook. And that must have been a rattling experience for the crew because if you remember, the Donald Cook was the ship that was absolutely paralyzed by a single Russian electronic warfare aircraft. I think it was about 2, maybe 3 years ago. And the Russians struck a commemorative coin to celebrate that. So anybody on the Donald Cook who was there for that last one probably had a negative reaction here. All righty. Joe Biden has tapped Dana Stroul to lead the Pentagon's Middle East desk. And apparently, at one point, Dana served as the Deputy Assistant, she'll serve as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East. And apparently, at one point, she bragged that the U.S. owns the Syrian oil territory. Remember the story from yesterday that the U.S. is plundering Syrian oil? Much of which goes to Israel here. But again, Biden is loading up his administration with a bunch of war hawks. He really is. Meanwhile, getting back to Iran, they have launched a new satellite-carrying rocket, and apparently it's called the Zuljana, and the Iranian state TV did not specify the exact date the launch took place, but they said the rocket is capable of carrying a 485-pound satellite. It uses solid fuel for the first and second stages and liquid fuel for the third, and apparently represents the Iran's most powerful rocket engine. And apparently it is built to carry multiple small satellites into orbit, the way that SpaceX does here. Now, Anthony Blinken accused Iran of reaching enough material for an atomic bomb in a matter of weeks if Tehran further violates restrictions it agreed to under the 2015 nuclear deal, the one which the United States unilaterally withdrew from. It's definitely incorrect and very misleading. It's based on the idea that Iran has a substantial stockpile of low-enriched uranium, and they are figuring at what level that stockpile could be enough for a single bomb. Now, a nuclear weapon, a uranium bomb, requires enrichment to 90% or higher. And Iran is presently enriching mostly to 3.5%. That's reactor fuel. That's not a bomb. Now, Israel is out there saying that the U.S. projection is, in fact, incorrect, and it will take Iran 6 months to produce enough material for a nuclear weapon. Of course, Israel has been screaming that Iran is on the verge of a nuclear weapon for 30 years, and left unsaid in both of these claims is any proof that Iran is actually doing that. Okay, this is all based on Iran is a threat because they could make a nuclear weapon somewhere down the road. And I granted the fissile material is the hard part to get, but there's a lot more that goes into a nuclear bomb than just having the uranium. Over in Israel, the IDF Chief of Staff Avi Kohavi said that military action against Iran is in fact on the table. Now, what Israel means by military action is the United States goes to war against Iran and Israel keeps their kids safely at home. And again, the excuse is they need to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear bomb. Now, this gets us back to when Israel bombed Iraq's nuclear power plant at Osirak. And Israel justified the bombing attack by saying that Iraq had a secret laboratory under the reactor to make nuclear weapons the way Israel does underneath Dimona. And following Desert Storm, international observers looked through the ruins of the Osirak nuclear power station and found the ruins of a nuclear power station. So Israel has a bad track record for knowing who is and is not, in fact, building nuclear weapons here. Over in the United Arab Emirates, say that 3 times fast, pardon me, their ambassador Yusuf al-Otaiba is basically saying that despite Biden's review, they are confident that the F-35 jet sale will go through. And he says there's going to be a review, but it's a pro forma, and there should be a review. I think the UAE ought to take a real good look at all those unresolved problems with that aircraft before they, accept the pink slip on that one here. Apparently, Antony Blinken says a partnership with Riyadh must be consistent with U.S. values. Well, looking at U.S. values in this day and age, I mean, election fraud, racial tension, abusive police, and the rest, I don't know if that's really a good idea here. But apparently they're still making a big deal over the murder of Jamal Khashoggi and suggested Washington, D.C. was reassessing its relationship with Riyadh to ensure it aligned with America's interests and values. According to an interview on NBC, Blinken acknowledged that Riyadh is an important U.S. ally, but said a review of bilateral ties is underway. Okay, now, over in Israel, thousands continue to protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. They're calling for him to step down and face the legal consequences of his corruption and fraud charges. And apparently, according to Israeli media, the anti-Netanyahu protests are all over the country. They're also in front of Netanyahu's office in Jerusalem and in front of his home in Caesarea. Over in India, whoa, time for more commercial. How time flies when you're doing the news. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here, and basically a story that just now this second came in. Apparently Jeff Bezos is going to step down as the CEO of Amazon in the third quarter of this year. So that's now been announced, and I don't know what it's going to do to their stocks. Turning back to the international news here in India, there have been farm law protests going on for a month. Protesters had stormed New Delhi's Red Fort last week. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi finally broke his silence and said, this is an insult to the country. And basically, he's out there trying to shame the farmers into standing down. I really do not think that it is going to work. Okay, now, over in Turkey, the Turkish police have detained 159 people at protests over the Erdogan-appointed university head. And apparently, it's one of the country's top universities, the Bogazici University in Istanbul. And the protest began actually about a month ago, saying that the appointment of Melih Bulu as rector was undemocratic. And apparently it's been escalating since then. Okay, over at China, everybody is arming up for war here, and the new frontier is the hypersonic weapons. Russia's deploying the Zircon hypersonic missile aboard their warships and submarines. The U.S. Navy has started down the path with the common hypersonic glide body for destroyers. China has come up with something completely different, an air-launched hypersonic weapon. It's described as a carrier killer, and it is the world's largest air-launched missile. So they're really out there here. Let's talk a little bit about the economic news. We're still seeing the repercussions from the GameStop, Reddit, Robinhood circus, if you will. And apparently, they're now getting ready to go after silver in what is being described as the biggest short squeeze in the world. And they're going to do a coordinated effort to target silver. Posts encouraged individuals to use the Shares Silver Trust, the largest silver exchange traded fund, and carry out what one user called the biggest short squeeze in the world. And they're saying silver bullion market is one of the most manipulated on earth. Yes, that's true. We talked about that, and gold in America's Book of Secrets. Any short squeeze in the silver paper shorts would be absolutely epic. So they're getting ready to do that right now. Okay, physical premium to paper hits a record in the silver market, and the shortage of physical silver is exposing a tear in the precious metals market unlike any we have seen before. Now, they've gotten away with this over leveraging because people really weren't paying attention, but a short squeeze on the silver market, everybody's going to start paying attention as to what's going on. We have to take a break for station identification. We'll be back after these few words. And welcome back to our show, hour number 2. And I got a little more news to go, and then we're going to open up the phone lines. I know we're a little bit late here, but it's been a very, very busy day. So we're talking about the Wall Street bets, the run on GameStop, what may or may not be a run on silver to squeeze the shorts there. Apparently, CNN just ran a story saying that no, even though silver prices are surging, that the Wall Street Bets group at Reddit is not behind it. I don't know that I actually trust CNN on this, because we've seen the corporate media just rally to the defense of the hedge funds and the money junkies. Anyway, apparently Jimmy Kimmel came on out and said that these short squeezes on Wall Street bets might be the fault of Russia. It's those gosh darn evil Russians again. Okay, according to our control room, apparently even Reddit is saying they're not behind the silver thing, so it's a pump and dump. But silver prices are surging if you've been wanting to liquidate. But I'd hang on to it if I were you. I really would here. Anyway, as I started to say just before, relative to CNN, over in the Epic Times here, the establishment players strike back against the GameStop investors. And apparently these investors, organized on the online Reddit forum, Wall Street Bets, have been buying en masse stocks of GameStop in the hope that hedge funds that have apparently borrowed large quantities of the stock to short will be forced to buy it back at exorbitant prices. And the establishment is not happy about that. Apparently down in Texas, the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, sent out a civil investigative demand to 13 entities, including Robinhood and Citadel, regarding the suspension of stock trading and investing, requiring higher margin reserves for trading certain companies and suspending chat platform activities. So the panic that ensued around Reddit has caught the attention of the Texas AG. Another article over here in PatriotRising.com. Guess which side the corporate media is taking in the GameStop story? And basically saying the corporate-controlled media is attempting to convince us all the hedge funds and the short sellers are actually the good guys, and the Reddit army is a bunch of dangerous insurrectionists that are a threat to the entire system. And so we have to be very, very careful what's being done here. Apparently, the investment app Robinhood has plummeted to a 1-star rating on Google Play thanks to a flood of thousands of new negative reviews. So that's another propaganda tactic. Just go on in, put in all kinds of negative reviews, and drive it down. All righty, over in New York, Bill de Blasio has a new idea. He's going to press ahead with the Green Plan, this in a city that's already hanging by an economic thread because of the COVID lockdowns. De Blasio is requesting a ban on natural gas connections on all new buildings in the city by 2030, which is going to be easier said than done. And finally, massive Chinese buying sends corn prices to the highest since 2013. Okay, people are already calling into the phone lines. I can take a hint. So we're going to open the phone lines now and go to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, Michael. Good day.
Good
Can you hear
day.
me?
Yes.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah, good day to you. Yeah, Mike. First off, you hit home about 30 minutes ago when you started talking about bumbling Biden going after all the white males, and I guess, and some females in this country.
Yes.
You know, Mike, I want to know are these Jewish white-skinned Jews being thrown in on this pile? The JDL types? Are the Jews being thrown in on this pile? Well, you know, I think my idea is that they're probably not. But the JDL and all these schmucks can get away with their filth in Hollywood, the pornography they put in Hollywood, and they're mostly Zionists. But when it comes to white people, the white man's bad. Hey, listen, like I told you yesterday, Mike, the founding fathers, okay, all of them that signed the Declaration of Independence basically were left penniless, okay, or they had all kinds of terrible things happening to them from the tyranny of a British government and other and spies that were inside the. At the time, there was a lot of spies in the Continental Army and all that. So, getting back now to what I want to say, Mike, then I'm going to go into the immigration in a minute, but bumbling Biden is going to dare go after the majority of the people in this country, the white males. We are still the majority. We don't need to take this narrative from anybody. We don't need to take it from Jews, blacks, anybody. We are the majority, okay? I can tell you many a times, we're not going to allow the asphalt to tell the gasoline what to do anymore. That ain't going to happen, Mike. And you know what? People are going to get fed up. And we're looking at a CW. Now, let's go back to immigration, Mike. And before that, have you heard what's going on in Utah? They're not even going to punish the people who do all kinds of major drug offenses. You're just going to get slapped on the wrist and let go.
Well, up in Oregon, they just legalized all illicit drugs. I mean, just across the board.
Yes. So this is a demon rat party running this country right into the ground, running this ramshot with this filth about white male this, white male that. Enough is enough. And that buffoon Biden won't even be around two more years to be a president. They'll put the most communist person that could ever be sit in the White House will be a Kamala Harris.
Yes.
Okay, a chameleon. Okay, but Mike, getting back now about illegal immigration. How dare we allow this to happen when we're the majority? How dare the white males have an uprising and gone to the border in millions? We can have a march on the Capitol and all that. We should have like 2, 3, 4 million white males that are conservative, who are tired of this invasion of our country, going down to that border and send a real message. You want to fight? We're going to give you a fight, government. That's where our fight should be right now, Mike, on that border. You're going to bring in federal troops into the Capitol and to Washington, D.C., under our George Washington, the President of the United States, and want to take his name down, like Jefferson, like Hamilton, and Jackson, and all these guys. Ulysses S. Grant was a general. They want to tear a statue down. He saved the blacks. Abraham Lincoln, who freed them. I don't understand this, Mike, but I tell you, the narrative's got to be played out now with all white males and females that will participate. We're not going to allow this invasion of our country any longer. You're going to follow the law. You're going to speak the language. You're going to learn to speak English. And if you don't like it, we're not going to become Bosnia-Herzegovina. Mike, you've been saying it for years. This country's on the precipice of becoming a balkanized nation. We are going to be splintered into sectors. There's no doubt about it in my mind. And the Chinese are way behind us. You know, Mike, I told you, USA Paper, 2007, the head general of China, the military at the time, the United States, USA Paper, USA Today newspaper said, if you knocked out half the population of China, you would be doing us a favor. Half of the population. You are doing us a favor, white Northern European man.
Yep.
I mean, what kind of nonsense is that telling you? And, of course, you got these Jews in bed with China. We're not going to deny it no more. It's not going to be denied. It's irrefutable evidence who's behind a lot of this nonsense. And you were just saying right now what's going on with GameStop. Well, you have patriots trying to save the country, and you got all these schmucks making billions of dollars. You had a guy like Zuckerberg. You have this Zuckerberg on tape saying how he's going to take Trump out of power.
Yes.
This filthy zombie-looking schmuck, okay? He probably stole that Facebook from somebody else. Most of these guys that can steal these ideas, they were penniless. peons, and they end up stealing these ideas from other people who actually had the idea, but they become billionaires off the deal. I remember Jeff Bezos was selling books over here in South Florida.
Yeah.
He happened to come out with an idea to sell books in a box. And I used to see the guy. I'm not going to lie to you. I saw this guy at a bowling alley, and he had a bunch of books in a box, and now he's a billionaire. And he hates it. He hates the republic. He hates his country. As a matter of fact, his father was his stepfather's Cuban, and he was actually born Jurgensen. Okay, Jeff Jurgensen. Yes. His dad was a Danish or something, and the father lives in Scottsdale. And by the way, Mike, my oldest brother lives in Scottsdale. He was a Vietnam vet, great guy, my oldest brother. Yeah. And he told me there's still Donald Trump signs all over Scottsdale and Phoenix.
Yes.
How did Trump lose Arizona? I don't get it. Trump lost Arizona, and the only way I can see he lost it was illegal aliens voting, illegal immigrants voting.
Well, now, wait a minute. If you were listening to the show earlier, they have confirmed fraud in Arizona, and now they've ordered a statewide audit. You're not going to hear that on the corporate media, of course, but that's what's happening in Arizona.
Of course not, Mike. You're absolutely right. And my brother said that Trump did win Arizona. So, it would have maybe put him over the top as far as the electoral college. But still, there's fraud. Like you say, the domino theory. The dominoes are going to start falling in all these states. Look at Georgia. You're bringing in 80, 90,000 Chinese from California, New York to turn that election, that state blue. It's unbelievable what we're allowing to happen. But like I say, Mike, the white males of this country, and I say that like Paul Revere. Paul Revere was he was right on the money, man, when he said the British are coming, you got to get ready and get in arms. Because if not, we'll lose the Revolutionary War. Mm-hmm. And, these founding fathers, were they all terrorists too, Mike? Were all the founding fathers now going to be labeled terrorists? That one punk that's going to call white males terrorists? That guy should be hung for what he's saying, for his filth. How dare that guy say that? There should be a march on his office right now by tens of thousands of white males saying, how dare you talk about us, and how dare you talk about the Revolutionary War heroes of our country, our leaders, Washington, Jefferson, all these great leaders, John Adams. I mean, give me a break, Mike. How much more of this nonsense we got to take us the majority? We're the majority. We're not the stinking minority. Mm-hmm. We're not going to allow this percolate anymore at this nonsense. We're going to let that bumbling buffoon, Biden, dementia-out idiot who should be getting cognitive tested to check that brain out. They made Trump do it. Why doesn't he do it? He couldn't even find his pin in his pocket the other day. It's so disgusting. The guy looks frail. He's weak as this guy looks like a total weakling. This bumbling Biden. His wife looks like she got more energy. Dr. Jill Biden. Jill my butt. What kind of doctor is this woman? I know what she was. She cheated on her husband. From what I read, she cheated on her first husband big time to be with Joe and to get the power. She's full of crap. It's like the Kamala Harris creep.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to take our men and our women, got to go to that border in Texas and Arizona, California, New Mexico. We're going to stop this nonsense. We're not allowing this no more, man. You're flooding our country. The group don't even want to speak our common language, actually. It's ridiculous. And, eventually this country will be totally, it'll be like Mexico, Mike. Let's not kid ourselves or Central America. We're going to have the same draconian laws and everything. It'll be disaster. Absolute disaster. Look at, Mike, have you seen the murders in Mexico? Have you seen how many murders they had in 2020?
Yes.
It blew my mind. Over 16,000 murdered in Mexico last year, in 2020. Check it out. And that's where they're probably, they don't even really tell you the truth what's going on over there in Mexico. Mm-hmm. If you go to Tijuana used to be a great place to go. I've been there twice. I've been to Tijuana, Mexico back in the 80s. I wouldn't go there if you gave me $10,000 to go there and buy leather goods. You kidding? This is crazy what we allowed to happen to our country. And like I told you, Mike, no matter what Donald Trump tried to do for the Afro-American community, and he did quite a lot. He did an awful lot, more than any other president. Let's be on the level here. You know what? I got to admit, he got more than I thought he'd get. But he'll never. I don't think no Republican will ever crack. I don't think they'll ever crack 30% of the black vote. If they can get 30%, it'll be huge. But I don't think he'll ever get
again, Tom, we don't know who actually did vote for Trump or Biden because of the massive election fraud. Trump may have gotten far more than 30% of the black vote. We just don't know. We don't have the actual hard information with which to make that kind of an analysis.
That's true, Mike, and you're right. And you know what? Maybe I'm wrong, and I'll take that back as far as we don't know. But as long as the media is controlled by Zog, They'll always be like, oh, yeah, they'll never vote for Republicans. It's always going to be for the Democrats because they give more stuff. And so the narrative is always going to be run by the filthy media, we know who's controlling the cabal, is controlling the media. They'll never allow us to say the real truth, like, ooh, hey, you know what? These Republicans are really hitting home with the Afro-American community. You know what? They're going to get 60% of the Afro-American vote. They'll never allow that narrative to be played out on TV or the print media. No way, because they're filthy, low-life communist Bolsheviks, Mike. You know, look at the Bolsheviks did to the Tsar. Look at what they did to the Tsar in Russia in the Russian Revolution, how they murdered the whole family. Disgraceful.
Yes.
You know? And that's how Hitler came in power. Come on, that's one of the reasons, I think. I don't know. It's all insanity. But these Bolsheviks, they're definitely trying to take this country totally down to be. And Mike, you know one more thing. I think the colors are wrong. I think the Republicans should be the blue party, and the Democrats should be the red party. Not that I love red.
Well, I think the Republicans should be the yellow party, considering how they refused to stand up and support Trump during this whole election theft.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Michael, let me go right now. One more thing. That one guy you were talking about, that congressman saying that all white men are terrorists.
No, he said all Republicans are terrorists. He said all Republicans are terrorists.
All the Republicans who loved our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, are patriots. That punk and that punk Reiner, that Baldwin, these freak shows. And if you notice that SNL, they don't put nothing bad about Biden, but 4 years they were unrelenting against Donald Trump. Trump is crazy. They haven't said one damn thing on SNL actually about Biden being a nitwit, a dingbat. They haven't said one thing about it. It's like they know if they do, they'd be kicked off the air. All those the Jews, the real liberal Jews, would kick off the conservative Jews right off the air quickly. Look at what they did to Michael Savage. Look at her trying to do Lamarck Levin and a bunch of other Jewish print media types. They want to get rid of all of them because the liberals, Bolshevik agents, are running the narrative, Mike. And that's the same thing in Hollywood and the same thing in our country. Like I told you, the JDL is a terrorist organization, but they won't ever be labeled that. Oh, they're great. They're wonderful.
Yes.
Defending a Jewish state. But if a white man wants to defend his Constitution, his Bill of Rights, and his Christian ideology, identity, which made this the greatest country on earth, and did all the fighting in World War I, World War II, Spanish-American War. It was 99% of those men were white Christian men, Mike.
Yes.
Am I lying?
Nope.
Thank you. No, they were. The Korean War, thank you, sir. They were. There were 90% of those men, at least, were white Northern European men fighting in all these battles and wars we had to fight. Who's kidding who? Alamo, all this stuff. The Alamo, all these battles, the Korean War. All we hear is about bad white man. We got to hear this buffoon, this guy that never went to war and his son got kicked out of the military.
Yes.
Biden's son couldn't even make it in the military, Mike. And this guy's a commander-in-chief over our forces, armed forces. If I was a military man, I'd say, what kind of disgusting disgrace is this? We got a guy whose son was booted out of the military, is a commander-in-chief of our military forces? Insanity, Mike.
Yes.
We have Kamala Harris as a Bolshevik communist. What could be possibly be the commander-in-chief? Are you kidding me? What were these people thinking? Are they on? What were they smoking? Terrifying. It's terrifying, Mike. It's absolutely absurd. But anyway, thank you for taking my call, Mike. I know you got other callers, but I just got to say this, Mike. That punk who said that the white men, the Republicans, are terrorists, you filthy punk. We're patriots, buddy. We're patriots. And I hope they kick that lesbian Cheney right out of power, that creep. That her father's another creep in the bushes. They're another rat. The whole thing, there was a big cabal, Mike, when Trump actually broke the wall down for a little while. But so we'll see what happens. But I want to hear Kevin calling or Miles. I haven't heard from Miles in a while. I hope they call one of them guys. So anyway, Mike, God bless you, or a great man, Marco from Alabama. So anyway, Mike, thank you for taking my call. Have a wonderful day. I'm a little upset after you brought out that congressman talking crap. So
okay,
thanks,
well, thank you very much for the phone call. And we're going to switch to James in South Carolina. And James, I'm going to have to take you through the next commercial break. What's on your mind?
Michael, I got two things.
Yep.
First of all, several years ago, I sent you a video and you linked to it. It was War is a Racket about Smedley Butler.
Yes.
You put it up, and it was a great benefit to my situation. And I appreciate it. I have another video that I think is worthy of you.
Mm-hmm.
There's the lady in Colorado, the Congress lady, Lauren Boebert. Have you heard of her?
Yes, I have.
Well, yeah, she's the one that said she would carry her Glock into Congress.
Yes.
Well, a lot of people don't know this, but it's perfectly appropriate, perfectly legal to do so. It's probably never been illegal in the whole history of the Congress to do it. At any rate, she's getting a lot of heat, like gun people always do. Well, I have written a song about her, and it's put down with a little 3-minute video, and it's called Lauren Boebert, Pistol Packin' Mama.
Can you send me the URL? Send me the link, and I'll put it up at what
I don't
really.
know anything about URLs. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that much about computers. It is on YouTube now.
All right, I'll look for it on YouTube. All right, James, we're going to let you go. We've got to take a break for commercials. I will look for it on YouTube. We got more callers waiting on the line, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. And before we go back to the phones here, 2 items. Somebody sent me this article about the history of the political colors on TV. And apparently back when Jimmy Carter won the presidency, the TV networks had red as the color of the Democrats and blue for the Republicans. So it was kind of arbitrary. Now it's kind of fossilized in. But I stand by my comment that the color for Republicans should be yellow for their failure to back Donald Trump here. The other thing I want to get to today was the new launch of SpaceX's Starship prototype. The flight went really fine. Unfortunately, during the landing, it exploded. So back to the drawing board on that one. Okay, Kelly in Austin. Hello, Kelly. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Message for Tom, man. I love you, but you got to slow down. You're gonna blow a cork one of these days.
True.
About GameStop, I told you yesterday that they were going to manipulate this thing, and they've already done that.
Yes.
Dave Portnoy, who was really behind a lot of this, said that he's lost $700,000 because they won't allow him to buy anything. And he said that Lad, meaning the guy who runs what is it, Robin Hood? He said
yes.
He stole it because he wouldn't let him participate by buying stock. He wanted other people buy the stock. So this is going to go on. They will rig that market to make sure that the retail investors are not going to make money. That all that money is going to flow from retail investors back to those damn hedge funds.
Just like Las Vegas, the odds favor the house.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I know a lot about odds. In Las Vegas, the house doesn't have just a little edge. The house has a huge edge.
Yeah.
But they play along and they let you win just enough to keep you coming back to the table. That's right. Now, I'm an inveterate reader. I read all the time, and I especially enjoy dystopian novels. And I just finished one that was written in 1976 by Irving Wallace. It was called The R Document. Have you read that book?
What was the name of it again?
The R Document.
No.
And you find out that R later on in the book means Reconstruction. It revolves around an attempt to pass what is billed as the 35th Amendment at that time. And that amendment provides for the suspension of the Bill of Rights in times of emergency. But the way it's written, and it's to be implemented, means that you actually end up living in a totalitarian state.
Yes.
Unfortunately, toward the end of the novel, the protagonist, who is the Attorney General of the United States, finds this document. It's actually a recording. The person who is behind it is the head of the FBI. Now, it amazes me how much, in this case, what we see now in real life mirrors what I read in that book.
Yes.
And if you look at what Biden is doing, he's trying to rule by decree, and he's trying to do everything in the world he can to vitiate the Bill of Rights and make it possible for him to rule entirely by decree. That really ought to be something that is a great concern to Americans, because At some point in time, he will attempt to suspend your freedom of speech, where it's already under attack.
Already happening.
The Second Amendment.
It's already happening. Yep.
Amendment. Yes. And then they'll completely obliterate the 9th and 10th Amendments, which takes any sovereignty that the states have away and puts everything under the thumb of Big Brother in Washington, D.C. Americans better wake up.
Well, you also need to remember. You also need to remember that past presidential administrations, going back to I think Nixon, have enacted what are called the FEMA executive orders, which all it takes is a declaration of a national emergency by the president for them to come into effect. And there's all kinds of things in there, like suspending the Constitution and the Congress. The government gets immediate control over all assets in the country. They can forcibly relocate you, assign you to work. I mean, it's a real nasty mess, and all they need is a convincing national emergency to bring it about.
Well, it wouldn't take much for them to cook up another false flag operation. This government has run false flag operations now for more than a century.
Yeah, but they're not very successful at it these days, which is why they hate the independent media so much.
Well, no, as long as somebody can shine the light on them, they hate that, because as soon as you turn the light, as soon as you expose the door, they're like cockroaches running from the light.
Yep.
This government is absolutely corrupt. Every administration going back decades is corrupt.
Yes.
Starting off with the sinking of the Maine in Havana Harbor, and then brought on through the sinking of the Lusitania. That was a false. Well, it wasn't a false flag operation, but it was staged because they wanted that. They wanted that ship.
Same thing with the attack on Pearl Harbor. Yeah. Roosevelt goaded the Japanese into that.
The attack on Pearl Harbor. And then there was the
Kelly?
In 1964. Kelly? Yes.
Stay on the line. I'm going to put you on hold. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Peter in Los Angeles. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Peter, are you there?
Are you still talking to Kelly?
Yeah, you told Kelly to hold.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Then, let's go back to Kelly. My mistake. All right, we're talking with Kelly. Kelly, pick up where you left off.
Yeah, all I was saying, and here to turn around this out, is that this government has run one false flag operation after another. Like I think that the 911 was in effect a false flag. I think that they knew it was going to happen. They did nothing to stop it. I think that what happened on the 6th was a true false flag operation.
Yeah.
And this government, I think this government is the most corrupt government. I'm serious, and I can't. It breaks my heart to say that, because I once loved this. I still love this country. I hate this government.
Yes.
Good Lord. And I'm sure that many other people are learning to hate the government too.
Yes.
All right, let me back off here. I know you want to talk to Peter. I've already said what I've had to say, but thanks for taking my call.
All right, you've got it. And now we're going to go to Peter in Los Angeles. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. Forgive me, I've got a bad cold here, but I've talked several times before about how the press, we all know who owns the press, has been weaponizing basically minorities against the majority in this country.
Yes.
And if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, there was a story, Mike, where there was some woman, some white woman, of course, there's a name for that. She's a Karen, and she apparently erroneously made a scene in something because she thought some black guy had stolen her cell phone.
Yeah, I remember that.
You remember that? Turned out it wasn't this guy, but it made the news everywhere. I mean, this is somebody's cell phone got stolen. Accuse the wrong person. It's been on forever. But I just want to point out what's been happening just in the last year or so. And I want to ask the people out there, this press that is totally weaponizing these people against us, how they reacted to it. There was one in Minneapolis where a woman was in a mall, and a black guy came up for no reason, took the little 3-year-old kid that she had with him, threw him over a balcony, and almost killed her.
Yeah.
There was the couple who was visiting the grave of their son at a veteran cemetery. They got shot by a sniper who was black and said it was for, I don't know, George Floyd or somebody.
Yeah.
Just two today. There was one up in Northern California where a guy, black guy, tortured, raped, and murdered two white women and put it on a live stream, and he got arrested.
Yeah. That was kind of a dumb thing for him to do.
Well, listen, brains isn't the strong suit there. But there's another one today. It was also north of the Bay Area, where an 84-year-old man was just walking in his driveway, and a 19-year-old black guy hit him so hard in like a variation of the knockout game that it killed him.
Yes.
Did you run that one as well?
Yeah, we ran that one.
And I want you guys to think about whether these are not covered at all. These are not national stories. If you don't grab these locally and make an issue of it, like I sent it to you or whoever, they're not on MSNBC, CNN, whatever.
Nope.
They're never on anywhere, and it enables these guys. But the message that they have is that we're doing all the crime against them, which is patent crap. And so they're being fed that they're being criminalized, that they're being victimized, when in fact it's just the other way around. But the people doing all this and setting it all up are the Zog media that Tom talked about, and the same people that are just trying to restrict our freedoms and everything else. Just fix the election, and it's divide and conquer. And they've always had willing, stupid dupes in the black community to weaponize. There's plenty of hate there that they can direct towards us, and they're fanning it. They do it on TV. They do it everywhere. I just saw today where the University of Chicago is gonna have a department for what's that, the
critical race theory. What's
that called? The critical race. So you've now be able to get a major, and at DePaul University, the black BLM is saying they need a new safe space off and on the campus where they'll be safe. It's like nobody's hurting them. They're the ones doing the hurting. But yet, by the way, I wonder, does that include they want separate like drinking fountains too? I mean, what is this? And yet we are demonized continually, and the same criminals who are setting this all up go on and on and on. And I bet I did this in half the time that anybody else did, but on one topic. That's it for me.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the phone call, and we're going to move to Joe in California. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
A big hello to my fellow terrorists.
I'm not a terrorist.
Mike,
I'm annoying, obnoxious, and irritating, but I am not a terrorist.
Yeah, great call again from Peter, our leader. I call him our leader. From Kelly, and of course from Tom in Florida. And thanks to Tom and Marco for the Florida information. But following up on what Peter said, I mean, I urge everybody to follow the work of Dr. E. Michael Jones. He's been writing about the Jewish-Black Alliance for decades in his magazine Culture Wars, in his books. So I urge people to follow his work. As far as
hello, Joe, are you there? Seem to have had. We lost him. All right. Then let's go to Layla in Canada. Hello, Layla. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, actually, I'll follow up on Joe's comment about the Jewish-Black Alliance. Yes, the Jews through the Civil Liberties Union and other such, and the was it the NAACP?
Yes.
Were stirring up the blacks a long time ago.
Yes.
They've been doing it for so long, and now they've incited them to violence. But the thing I wanted to ask actually is, what is the potential for the 5G network to be used as a weapon system?
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on about 5G. You need to remember, the issue is the frequencies it operates at are much higher than the 4G, but it's also a much lower power system, which is why it has to have so many more antennas around there for the system to work. It's the cells are much smaller than other systems, which is being done in anticipation of the heavy bandwidth from like self-driving cars and so forth. As far as it being weaponized, I don't know that it's got the power to do anything. I know there are health concerns about radio waves in general, and a lot of people are concerned about 5G as well.
Is there a way, instead of Trump having tried to build a wall, could he not have used something different, such as microwaves, or is that too risky to people, Americans near the border? And is it more risky than having illegal migrants come over?
Well, the danger to people living near the border is definitely a factor. The other one is that the coyotes, the people smugglers, all they need to do is have a vehicle, with that's completely metal, and they have very fine mesh screens over all the windows, so that it actually operates as a Faraday cage, and they'll be able to drive right past those microwave weapons, without problem.
How does radar work? Does it work on the ground at all? Is there any way that could have been used? I mean, there must have been a quicker and more modern, technologically modern way of screening the border. Because even with walls, I mean, you still have infiltration.
Yes.
Even if you had completed the entire 2,000 miles or whatever it is, there still would be infiltration. So there must be some kind of modern technology that could have been very quickly erected and that would actually be more effective.
Well, at what cost? I mean, walls, as expensive as the wall was, it probably was the lowest cost option, as opposed to automated guard towers like they have in Israel. Where these towers are there equipped with machine guns and TV cameras, and people sitting in this command center miles away just keep an eye out, and anybody gets too close, they hit them with the machine guns. But that's a very expensive per mile kind of system to have.
Well, of course, we can't afford it because we're busy sending it off to Israel to do it instead, to the Palestinians.
Yep.
who are only sneaking back into their original homes. But with the impeachment that's coming up, have you read any international reactions with regard to whether Trump is being badly treated or whether there's utter indifference to it?
Most of what I've read in the international press is they think it's a waste of time because Trump is already out of office. They think he's being railroaded. They're basically, this is backflashing on the Democrats, who are coming across as petty and vindictive. Polls among the American people, the majority think it's a lousy idea to move forward with this. And on top of it all, it looks like they're not going to get the votes to convict anyway. So it's going to be a huge nothing burger at a time when the American people kind of would like their Congress to be paying attention to some other issues facing this country.
Yeah, well, the reaction in Canada is more like they're delighted to see him humiliated. And a lot of that stems from the Trump's failure to live up to his promise to cancel NAFTA.
Yes.
And calling himself the great negotiator, Canada waited until after Trump and Mexico put their cards on the table. Then Canada moved in and negotiated with Trump. And that's what strengthened Justin Trudeau,
yes,
who I had hoped would be weakened by Trump, but instead Trump flipped and allowing Trudeau to appear as though he had outwitted the great negotiator and had been a better negotiator. Really, it was humiliating for me because
yes.
I had been very critical of Trudeau, and I had said that I thought NAFTA should be canceled, and so I felt I felt like a real fool. I was using my own name on a number of blogs with people who knew me. And so Trump, the great negotiator, was outwitted by someone as witless as Justin Trudeau and his Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland. It was very disconcerting. So anyway, I just hope that any patriotic movements going forward aren't going to be using Trump as an icon or a rallying point, because I think he's not toxic, but I think he's tainted, and the patriotic movement should be based on simply the principle of the Republic and the Constitution and the rights of the people. I think this near deifying of Trump is a little extreme and very reckless when there are far greater issues at stake, because I think Trump is not entirely innocent of his own downfall.
Well, he was a disappointment on several issues, and I'll be the first to concede that. But I think the focus on Trump is not about Trump himself, but the American people's natural instinct for fair play, which we know Trump got robbed last November, and mostly about the American people taking back control over their government by overcoming the election fraud.
I think Trump robbed a lot of people as well who were counting on him to do things that he could have done and did not do.
Yep.
So I don't think, the people got robbed, yes, far more than Trump got robbed.
Yes.
And when we look at who Trump pardoned on his last days,
yep,
and his failure to use the Insurrection Act when it would have been effective, instead of locking the barn door after the horses bolted, all of those things are just, in my mind, make Trump a non-entity as a positive, as an asset in any movement. I just hope that
he's got name value. You can't write off his name value. Working in entertainment, for the years that I did, I saw a lot of people who were not nice people, but they had the name value. Film investors call it bankability. And I think Trump still has that going for him.
I would tend to disagree, being on the outside looking in, and having friends around the world that I communicate with. There are a lot of people who think that he's a liability, and that anyone who risks their own reputation and their own livelihood and their assets to continue to defend Trump or use him as a rallying point, that they're being very careless and are poor planners. That's all right. Well,
let me ask you a question.
By the way,
let me ask you a question.
Sure, go ahead,
instead of Trump, who do you think should be the rallying point for the Republican Party?
The Republic, the country, the people, the concepts that the Constitution.
No. There has to be a figurehead to run as a candidate or be the focus of it. Who would you recommend?
I wouldn't recommend anybody. Or if I were to look at to recommend a type, I would say someone who was a common man who has fought most of his life for the Republic and risked everything that he has. Someone like you, perhaps someone like John Stadmiller. People like that. They are one of the people who have been consistent and have actually sacrificed and not made money from one end while saying something different at the other end. It's the sincerity, it's the actions that speak louder than the words. So that's the kind of person that I think would be able to motivate or draw people to a peaceful way of resolving this issue. Now, how it's going to be done peacefully is fascinating, because Joe was right in everything he said. Or Tom, sorry, but he failed to say how all of this was going to be done. I remember I called in and I said everybody should go and form a citizens barrier at the border when the migrant caravans were coming through.
Well, they tried that in Arizona and they got shut down. Anyway, Layla, we got to take a break for commercials. I got to let you go. We're at the end of the show and I got a bunch of calls to get through. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here, the last segment of our program today. And Joe in California managed to reconnect. So, Joe, where were you when we got disconnected before?
Well, Mike, I was just going to comment on what Tom was saying. He was talking about the majority of the white people in this country. But Tom, you got to remember, a lot of these white people are self-hating whites. They're ashamed of their color. So you can't really look at 62%. I would say maybe 35% are proud white people. So you've got to take that's the consideration.
Well, I'm proud to be whatever I happen to be, which is not clear. I haven't got my 23andMe back yet.
Yeah, and last 2 points, people need to buy physical silver, not the ETF. More people need to get involved in the physical market. Actually, Mike, the price of silver, the spot price has gone down. It's close to around $27. So it hasn't gone up. It's fallen. So the only way to end this corruption is for more people to get involved in the physical market. And then lastly, I don't know if you saw the interview with Fauci, Lord Fauci, I call him. He said there was no scientific data on the effectiveness or usefulness of wearing 2 masks. And yet the CDC comes out and says you have to wear 2 masks in transport, on planes, buses, trains. So I thought this whole thing was being driven by the science.
No, I think it's being driven by people who own stock in the companies that make those masks.
Right. And then we also hear about these anal swabs in China. Just further degradation of the public. So I think that's probably going to be coming here as well.
Yep.
So that's all. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to go to Andy in Texas. Hello, Andy. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hey, thanks, Mike. I'm sorry I'm probably going to be last caller, but maybe not. Here we go. Anyway, the biggest problem we have in this country right now is the misinformed public. These people haven't been paying attention for years and years and years and years and years. And so they've been able to do whatever they want to do. And right now, there's a real simple fix to this if we had an informed public.
Yes.
There's a simple fix for everything.
That's what we're trying to do around here.
Compliance.
Yes.
Exactly. It's non-compliance. If people would just get off their butts and do some research and realize they're being scooped. And you know what? We got 75 million, I guess, that voted for Trump. That's a pretty damn good start.
Yes.
Let's just bet that 50 million of them are informed. They realize there's something seriously wrong here. So we got 50 million people out there. So I think people should stand proud on what you stand for, even if there's nobody standing next to you. Stand proud for what you stand for, because what you stand for is the righteousness. And I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about just righteousness.
Yes.
This has to end, and we have to do something about it. And I really appreciate your program, and I really appreciate your phone callers. You guys do a great job. Thank you so much, Mike. You have a great day.
Well, thank you very much here. And we are, unfortunately, at the end of the program here. And I'm going to apologize to all those callers waiting on hold who did not get on the air. Please call in tomorrow. Call in a little earlier, and we will get to you. Meanwhile, stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Please spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. It has never been more important. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.